All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am your host, Damon Pistolka, and we have a special guest with us today. We have Shannon Carriere here today. We are going to be talking about enabling using HR to enable business growth because Shannon is awesome at helping people with HR. Shannon, welcome today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited. So glad to
Oh,
be here.
it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So excited we can finally make this happen. Whew. Lots of things happening for you. It's summertime.
Mm-hmm.
Your sons are in baseball. Good stuff. Maybe winding up a little bit, but starting again later. This is awesome. We're going to have some good stuff about that later. But first, I always like to share with our listeners the background of our guests so we can understand where people are coming from.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I have been in the HR world for just about 20 years and spent most of my time adventuring through corporate in a variety of different roles and opportunities, and really a chance to experience all the different areas. I was fortunate enough to touch just about everything. Very fortunate to not have to touch payroll, so I got through that pretty well. I'm excited so far.
Yeah.
And just a few years ago, thought, I could really take all of this and do something with it, and maybe make some impacts on in a bigger way for me outside of that corporate world, and transition to the consulting and fractional space.
Nice. Nice. So what drew you into HR?
I think, like many, it was more I fell into it. I started in hospitality and I was in operations, and they needed somebody to do something like training, and no one was willing. And I was young and impressionable and said, I'll do anything to look good. So
Yeah.
I tried it, and I really fell in love with the training and development side, the kind of the culture shifting and things of that nature that you got to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I think I just got hooked from there.
Yeah. And I, it's a lot different than the day-to-day work that you normally would get into at that point, and probably a little more people oriented as well.
Right. And it was fresh and exciting, and hospitality. I was dealing with a bunch of customers who were frustrated. I mean, who knew that in the long run I'd still be dealing with a bunch of customers that are frustrated as an
Yeah.
HR professional, but it's a different game, and getting up and facilitating it's a rush. It's an excitement from that day
Uh,
to day. You're right.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, wow, we got lots of comments already so far. We got Sharon stopping by and going, woohoo. So happy. Thanks for being here today, Sharon. We got Harry Flares here again. Thank you, Harry, for showing up, my friend. Happy Friday Eve. That's what we like to hear because we're getting ready for that. Jason Forehands here. Hello, Damon Pistolka and Shannon. Awesome. Jason, thank you. Sorry, my lips are getting tongue tied here. And he talks again. Jason says again, we fall into the work. I can't tell you how many people that is. It's like, how'd you get into it? I kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
And it's situations put us into those opportunities. That's really is what it is.
I like to think it's fate of some sort. It just,
Yes.
we belong there somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you really do? Okay, so you've been in it for more than a couple years. Do you still have the same passion for it that you did when you started?
Yes, and different, if you
Yeah.
will. I no longer get the excitement of getting up in front of a group like I used to.
Mhm.
I'm over it, right? I'm tired. I wanna do things that maybe have a little more behind the scenes
Yeah.
impact. I would say, in fact, probably what I'm most passionate about these days is getting the HR experience to be very low drama people management. Like, how could we take the intensity out of how we're managing people? Um, Probably a couple ways I could describe that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, uh, one is a common sense approach, right? We have to realize that all of us are humans doing human activities, and it's not about hierarchy or ego or power. Like, none of that stuff is going to move us forward. We have to come up with sensible solutions with strong company outcomes and not individual outcomes. So working away from thinking that leadership is all the things that belong, and really we're one big team that all plays a part. And the second part of that is I really work hard to create low reaction environments. So I had a boss, speaking of hospitality earlier, I had a boss early in that time, bless his heart, really steady human, like got things done, pretty decent leader. But he had this one major flaw, and that's when he had a few leaders who would escalate things really intensely. I mean, like one little tiny thing would set them off, and they'd come stomping up to his office, or they'd be screaming on the phone. And he had a choice, right? He could sit and de-escalate and try to work through that, or he could jump into their escalation, and he did every single time. And I mean, the guy just had the knack for finding the wrong fire extinguisher for the wrong fire, and things would just explode every single time. And I think it was those moments when I realized I don't want to be that kind of leader. I don't want to do that to people, and I don't want to do it to myself, because the incredible stress level involved with that is wild. And so I try to create environments where no matter what's happening, you're not going to see me react, right? You could tell me something really big, and I'm just going to ask questions and try to understand, and then we'll sort through solutions. I think that brings a lot to an organization.
That is huge. That is huge. And I think if you're bringing that to organizations, you can forget about everything else. Because if you can do that in organizations, that's an incredible thing to do. Because, and I've seen it in some of the organizations I've been working with for a while now, and really it takes intentionality to be able to do it. But when you can do that and you can go, okay, we're going to talk about something uncomfortable here. We all know it's going to be uncomfortable, but we all know that we have to do it. And we can do it professionally. It's an incredible experience to be able to do that.
Yeah. And you get to results and good outcomes that much more quickly. And isn't that what we all want?
Yes. Yes. And that's that. But like you said, we have that choice to jump into that intensity, or we can choose to listen and let people talk and do whatever's going to happen, and then start to move forward with a different approach.
That's right. And I get it. Sometimes we're bored and a little drama feels good. But as long as it's not a constant thing.
Yes. Yes. But it is. And thinking back through my career and other times, you certainly do meet people that jump right onto that energy level that's coming in front of them. And there are others that they just pause and let the person talk, and then help to de-escalate and actually resolve things. So.
And either way, it's a learned behavior they've had along the way, whether at home or through their career and things that they've been trying to develop. So
yes. Well, and the good thing is people can learn to change that.
Yeah. I mean, if you see the problematic nature of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, it started years ago with just going, count to 10 before you say stuff stupid. I mean, really
very nice to yourself.
Well, I think I was nicer than that, but I mean, just say count to 10.
Yeah.
In you just go back like that, and you don't need to. You really need to let things soak in a little bit.
So did that work for you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Do you still count to 10, or do you use another method?
Very, very few I have to do, because I can just, I listen. I just listen.
It's more natural now.
Yeah, it's more natural. I still feel it, especially if it's something that's getting me. I still feel it, but I fight it back. I say, no, you have to listen.
Yeah.
You have to sit there. You have to go through it. This is okay. Even though you feel your adrenaline starting to move into your body, you still just can't say anything. You just want to let it go.
Just breathe.
You're breathing and listening, and the inside, that little devil's just going crazy. But it has helped a lot. It's helped a tremendous amount, because, you, as you said, you want to create an environment where people are doing work together. And people
Yeah.
need to be able to bring their frustrations, and we have to understand that there are people that are going to be on varying degrees of their personal development, their environment that they grew up in, and how they communicate. And we have to be, as leaders, we have to be able to respond to that and get them working
Absolutely.
together.
And that's really the piece of it is when you have a reactionary leader, whether it's surprise or anger or anything, it creates unpredictability. And business in and of itself is already unpredictable. We don't need, as leaders, to bring that same thing to the table.
Yes. Good. Well, we got a few. Chasen said, stop the knee-jerk reactions and get to the action of solving problems. Well done, Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also said #courageous conversations, which I think that's, I appreciate those so much now, because it's easy when you don't confront those things, it's easy to push it away, right?
Mm-hmm.
We go, okay. And it just festers and gets really big. And then all of a sudden it comes out a lot worse if you don't do it. And if you just say, nope, we're going to talk about it now.
Yeah. And that goes back to that idea of being common sense with your people. If you realize that it's not about you and how you feel in a situation, it's what they're experiencing. And the sooner you can get to figuring that out and approaching about it, having a courageous conversation or whatever conversation it looks like, the sooner you get to that, the sooner you get to results, getting our own egos out of the way or whatever it may be.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, Barry says listening is so key. I'm just going to take a moment on that one.
Yeah.
This is something interesting. Harry says, I see new HR names, Shannon, like head of people, human capital management, talent management, partner resources. I always believed the name human resources was fine as long as you're a good human who's resourceful.
Agreed. It just, that doesn't fit on a business card anymore. So if I could fit that, maybe we could work it out.
Yes, that would be good. That'd be good. So we have 4 generations of humans in the workplace today. We got people that are fed up with the fact that they can't work remotely anymore. We got people that don't want to work remotely. We got leaders that don't know how to do hybrid. We got people that it's all these kind of things happening. So what are some of the things that you see as common traits in these companies you're helping right now?
I would say that if there's one common trait for every single company I have probably ever helped, it's that they get in their own way, overcomplicating a solution. And to the point, and I'll use this word, but I think it's the best word I can come up with, because it's some sort of subconscious fear of people and what they're going to do. So as leaders, we sit around a room and we speculate, but what about this? And they're going to think about this, and how are they going to react? And now, why don't we just find out? Why don't we just engage them instead of sitting here in all this speculation? And similar to that, we often use generations in a generalized way. We talk, oh, well, all of them are like this. All of the employees feel this way. All of the employees, but really, does every single employee feel the exact same way, or have we not really gotten a clear pulse on it? So yeah, organizations, if they can slow down, again, get out of their leadership boardrooms or conference rooms or wherever they're at in a Zoom call, and just go talk to them and find out what they really think. Don't be afraid to ask a question that might get you an answer that's unpleasant, and you might get past something.
Yes. Don't be afraid of the unpleasant answers. Oh, yeah. I'm writing that one down.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And they're usually the biggest gems, right? They're the ones that stop us in our tracks and say, oh, I didn't realize that. And once we realize something we didn't, then we start to move forward.
Best gems. That's true, though. It's true, because it's like anything. the people closest or the people that are involved know better than the people that are leading them usually how things are done or what's going on. So it's great to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're helping companies, let's talk about some of the typical situations that you see coming into companies that could be landmines to growth, could be landmines to recruiting, other things, and just keeping the best talent they got.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I would say that one varies from company to company because there so many people are in just different stages. I often work with companies who are in a turnaround stage, right? They've gone so far and some things have gone wrong and we're trying to get out of it. Or we're trying to maybe prepare for a sale. We'd really like to sell, but we realize we've got some issues that we need to fix up. And then sometimes if I'm really lucky, I'll talk with a company who says, I've done this before and I messed up and I don't want to do it wrong the next time. So on some good days, I'll talk to some folks that are in that stage. So I think that those are probably the most common. When I think about the sales folks, it's interesting because they almost have an idea in mind. I just want to fix things enough so I can sell. But that's not always enough to just be enough, if you will.
Yes.
And they'll say, well, okay, HR due diligence, I just have to make sure that no one's going to sue me. And if that's good, then a buyer's going to be okay with it. And I think we have to go beyond just doing well enough that we haven't hurt somebody to the point of litigation. It's a really far extreme to dig into. If we could do something different and create value and maybe some sustainability, we put the organization in a really good position, whether you're going to sell or not, because you may do some good things that make you think, maybe I want to hang on to this sucker because I've done some cool things with it.
Yeah. I agree in that at that point. I mean, when we talk with people and we're going through, restructuring or whatever they want to do as they're preparing to exit or go to the next growth level, then exit. We always, when we talk about, we run the business like we're never going to leave and we want it to run as best we can, but we intend to sell it when it's right time. You run it like
That's
you're never going to leave, but
Yeah.
you know that you're going to sell it when it's the right time.
Yeah.
And that's why your HR decisions or investment decisions and other things are always done like that, so that we can make sure that these things are done. Because you're right, doing just enough to get through due diligence oftentimes backfires, because just enough is easily seen if somebody wants to go deep. And good buyers know how to do it.
Right. If you're going to put your money into something, you want to know the details.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have some tips for those who want to look at that. If we have a few minutes to talk through
Let's
it.
do that. Let's do that. So you got a
Okay.
few tips for people to consider if
Yeah.
they're going to get ready to sell.
Yeah. Or if they're not and they just want to make a better business, that works too.
Or make a better business. There we go.
Yeah. I think so. One of the very first foundational things is when we look at compliance. People think though about compliance is, okay, do I have my posters up and did I do a handbook? Great, I'm awesome, I'm done. And it's really so much more than that, because you can have those things in place, but you're still pretty exposed to liability if you don't know what to do with them. So you have to have processes that feed into the policies that you put together. So say, for example, Department of Labor, you are required to allow meal and break times for employees. And states differentiate, how much and which, so it's different each place. But either way, it's there. So you put in your handbook, all employees must have a 30-minute meal break. Great. You did your job, right? You're all done. They're going to do it. It's all set. We don't have to think twice. Of course not. So you have to look at, one, are you holding them accountable to that? Two, do you actually have systems that allow for tracking that meal period? When it comes to something like a time and attendance, if you don't actually have a system that's supporting you and you're not doing your work to hold them accountable, It doesn't exist. You didn't do it. And now you're exposed to liability.
Ooh, great point.
Yeah. Because if you can't prove that you did, there's nothing exists. Similar, if you have 15 or more employees, you're subject to the American Disabilities Act, of course, which tells you not to discriminate against people with disabilities. And so you can say that in a policy, great, it's in the handbook, we're not going to discriminate. But if a disability actually exists within your pool of people, or you perceive it exists within your pool of people, you are responsible for taking specific steps in approaching accommodations to prevent discrimination. So if you're not actively taking steps to prevent it, you are exposed to liability.
Actively taking steps. So we got to see, what are you talking about there?
Well, it's a lot more detailed than,
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to bore the entire audience here, but there's a process to have interactive discussions with an employee, and you have to walk through that process and find options and availabilities and engage them in conversation in a certain method, in a certain set of steps, in order to be compliant.
Ooh. That's something I did not know. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So it's more than just a handbook, right? You actually have to have the processes and the actions that come along with what you've got in that handbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that's number 2. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah. That was number 1. That was only number 1. We're ready for number 2.
Compliance and ADA. Well, yeah. And then, you know, when you get over 50, it's a whole nother thing that you have to deal with. And we got some clients in that situation, and it does. I mean, the processes have to be behind these things, because like you said, if you don't have a process, you aren't tracking, you aren't doing.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
The second one I would really take a look at is performance. And this is twofold, because there's an opportunity to show a buyer that your employees are dedicated, engaged, they're working towards goals if you have performance plans in action. And if I want to buy a business and I ask, are the employees worth keeping? You're going to tell me they're amazing because you love them. You've been with them for years, right? But if you could show me that they are amazing over a period of a few years, you're building credibility. I'm gaining confidence that maybe there's some real value here in the business. And well, not to mention, if you are working with the team on goals that make the business more valuable in other ways, then you're also making the business more valuable in other ways.
Yeah.
I'm putting those pieces together. So win-win. And really, you're giving your employees a chance, because your buyer is confidently hearing from you that they are a must-have. So they already have a leg up. So if they are bringing employees over, they're going to know long ahead of time who I want to bring, because you've got evidence that shows that they're strong players.
And that's a great point, because we talk a lot with sellers and preparing businesses, getting those businesses ready for sale. But I really hadn't thought about it in terms of this. If you have a solid performance reviews and you can show that your key management team, you know, they've been there for however long, but this is what their reviews say, and they're showing that they have, you know, they're continuing to develop. There are things that are good, bad, but they're really solid. That's a big thing.
Wouldn't that make you excited?
Yes. Yes, it would.
It would me. Like, if I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, they're really settled there. So maybe there's something else in the cell that isn't as desirable, or I think might require a little more time and effort. But if I know I've got a solid employee base,
yes,
it's easier to say yes.
Yeah, it's a huge aspect that I hadn't really considered deeply enough. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And also, like you said, it's just getting that specific kind of feedback and conversations with those employees too.
And the engagement with them takes them further and makes them more connected with the organization. which leads me to the third piece. You really have to understand at the beginning, as soon as you possibly can, your market compensation and equity standing. So when a business is turning over, there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of stress that comes along with it. And employees who don't have that connection with the business, whether it be because they've got loyalty and they feel good about their work, and they're not being reasonably paid, or they know that they're off in equity, they're going to be more likely in the midst of the transition to go find something else with, I don't know, less turmoil. Even if it's at the same wage rates, because they understand they're walking into a challenging situation for a period of time. And so if you're checking this early and communicating clearly with the teams, you may have some more peace of mind with the sustainability throughout the employee transition, because you have to ask yourself if you are strong enough in the market with your people to sustain a 4 to 6 month significant changeover.
Yeah.
Because it can take that long for a new owner to get acquainted and adjusted and build trust.
That's a great point. Because it is really about, you look at what you're talking about, make sure you're compliant, make sure you're proving that, make sure that your performance reviews are being done, and you really have the right people in the right places, and show that. And then you look at the last one, if they're properly compensated, you've got a really solid foundation to show that your team is good, and they're going to
and they're going to stick around. And so the new owner doesn't have to stress that they can work on the things that may be more labor or mind intensive.
Yes. Yeah. Good stuff. And that was something that came up in a conversation last week. I think it was, we were talking about it and talking about the cultural integrations in a merger, and the challenges of those. And this is also something that would help to really get that the compensation, like you said, to keep people through that uneven time, because there is an uneven time. I don't care if you're bringing in 5 employees or 5,000 employees, there's going to be an uneven time, or just a rough time, because things change. They just do.
Because it's uncertain and it's different, and no one trusts in the way that they would like to trust to feel comfortable. There's lacking comfort. And I'm a strong believer that culture is a product of the systems that we put in place. And if we don't have systems that support what we believe, then things can easily fall apart.
Yeah. Yes. Very cool. So you said something, I don't know if it was when we were on now or before we got on. So, yes. Companies in turnaround. We've had a lot of tech companies, a lot of other companies laying people off. I mean, we're not in a free fall down, downward spiral in our economy, but there just seems like over the last year and a half or 2 years, there have been in certain sectors some pretty heavy layoffs. And what are you seeing if people are faced with that, or a couple things that they can do that can help them lessen the blow? I don't know, not do it so poorly. I mean, look at all the horrible examples we have. People doing it, letting thousands of people go on Zoom, or not even telling them, just coming in and their stuff doesn't work, or their keys don't work, or, and all this kind of stuff.
I wish we could fix that. I think what you're seeing there are acts of desperation where they really missed the boat probably 1 to 2 years prior to this situation, and seeing everything that they should have seen. And now they have no other way out. So those aren't very salvageable. And unfortunately, when we're in an environment that we kind of allow for those kinds of quick fixes to happen, right? If your publicly traded companies are being rewarded for making quick fixes like that, I don't think we're going to see much change. And those are Band-Aids. And they think, wow, this Band-Aid worked it's going to work again. So I don't think there's a lot of motivation to change that overall behavior. And with larger companies, honestly, sometimes it's just so out of hand. You have 30,000 employees plus employees. It's probably going to cost you just as much money to work into a turnaround than it would to do the quick fix. So I hate to say that, but there's not a ton of motivation there.
Yeah.
But if we as companies are always thinking about those results, if we're always thinking about avoiding complacency in our work to make sure that, again, we're not looking at frivolous outcomes, but we're trying to keep the business running, and we put our efforts towards some of these things that I've talked about, making sure you have the fundamental systems in place, you're going to see the red flags that maybe we're overspending or maybe we're overhiring a lot sooner than you do otherwise. If you're not watching that, if maybe you're focused on things that are good, like innovation, but because of that, it distracts you from the fundamentals, it's just more likely.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head in all these points here. First, and even the last one was just drove the point home, is you can only focus on innovation so long before the money catches up.
Yeah.
I'd say that's what happened to a lot of these people. We got caught up in thinking people think it's going to go great forever. And they massive hiring. And like you said, if you don't have the right systems in place to see when it's time to start tapering that off, to really let the business absorb it and see where you're at, you're going to go into this cyclical bounce of in and out of that.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I shared earlier, sometimes we're chasing the drama, and something like innovation or some of these really sexy ideas are wonderful and they're exciting. You just have to balance that with the positive influence things that allow you to innovate more, and realize that if you have these things going on, that's going to give you more of that high that you're looking for.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Good stuff. Jamie says, totally agree about compensation equity. And it is not a small undertaking to do that analysis. No, it's not. It's not. And there are some good tools that will help an awful lot on that. And it is something that it's not easy. It's not easy. And especially if you've overlooked it for a long time.
Right. And it's not just about knowing what the job is worth in the market. It's knowing what the job is worth to you and understanding how you're utilizing that. And that creates a complexity that a lot of people, maybe outside of manufacturing, don't really do job valuation.
Well, and that is a great point, because we've worked with other clients, other industries outside of manufacturing, and they oftentimes do not look at it that way like you do in manufacturing. How many dollars are generated by a certain station or certain work cell, whatever it is. And that really helps you understand what what that person is generating, how much they can be paid, and everything, with everything working out the way you want it to be. It's huge. It's huge for you to understand that.
Imagine if we did that in some of these tech companies, to understand what of our roles are revenue generating and truly investment oriented, and then watching that balance to a comfort level.
Yeah.
Could change the game.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, Harry always coming in with some great comments. How about thinking about doing the right thing? And that always seems to work the best. That's a great approach. In these turnarounds, though, I think you're right. The one thing that I've always, and honestly, it's the reason why I moved out of investment-owned businesses, is that as an investment-owned businesses, whether it's a private investor-owned or publicly traded company, the necessity or our demands as investors have driven it. The demands of shareholders have driven these kind of actions, and we have very little tolerance for someone that stands up and says the right thing to do in our company. Now, just imagine this: if someone, just pick figurehead at a big company right now, and if they stood up and said, well, the right thing for us to do is we're going to retrain all of our employees, and we're going to lose $1 billion this year doing it, but we think in 3 years it's going to make us a stronger place. They're going to get laughed out of the market.
Right. And that's where your really great CEOs come in, because they're not saying, I'm going to do this and we're going to lose on this. They're saying, I'm going to put my neck on the line. I believe that I can make something happen. I take ownership. I will take the risk. I believe that if I do this, I will get you the results you want. And if we have CEOs that are willing to take that kind of risk, I think they're being heard a little bit more. That
is incredible. I believe 100%. And they shirk back and fall too conservatively sometimes with that, and it costs us dearly in terms of people.
We especially as leaders, and especially the way the market is as it is right now, we are covering our own butts to stay steady, and we try to drag it along as we can. But imagine if we took a little risk, how much more successful we would have a chance to be.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Stand up saying, this is what we're doing. I believe it's going to be great. And putting themselves on the line. Good stuff. So as you're looking forward, I always like to ask, what is exciting you about people and HR and business right now?
I'm really excited about combating this idea that has become trendy, that I can run a business without a people function. And I think, I don't know who's doing it. I've seen some podcasts and some Instagram reels of people saying, I ran my whole business without it and I don't need this. And I really like getting out there and talking to people and letting them know, you're right. You don't need an HR department like you think you had one before, but people are your biggest expense. People are your biggest investment. So you can choose to let them on their own and do nothing. That's an option. You can choose to have the leaders in your organization handle it, some probably with good abilities, some with not. But by doing that, you're taking your great sales leaders, your great marketing leaders, your great revenue leaders, everything else out there, away from the thing they do best. So if they had the support of someone with knowledge and expertise and experience in managing these tough things and taking some of that pain out of the way, where could your business go? So sure, do it without one, but also you're wasting the talent on your team that you spend a whole lot of money to bring on.
Yes, because the HR function doesn't go away. It just means that if your leaders are doing it, they're doing things that would normally be done by somebody else. It's
right. Dealing with people doesn't go away. Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And I hope, I'm only one person, but I think that there's a lot to be done to shift away from the traditional understanding and reputation of who HR is. And while I certainly have met a few folks that maybe are operating in a more personnel way, it's usually company driven and not necessarily driven by the human in the HR function. Mm-hmm. People behave in HR the way the company wants to. That's a CEO's decision, not the HR function's decision.
Yeah, because they're largely in some of those situations just enforcing policy or making sure training on policy and making sure it's happening.
Yeah. Well, and if you're a CEO and you want your sales leader to do a better job, and sell more, you talk to them and ask them to sell more. An HR leader is the same thing. So what you want them to do better is what you tell them to do better. So if you tell them to get a handle on costs, they're going to go get a handle on costs, and that creates reputation. If you tell them they need to get a handle on performance, they're going to go do that, and that creates a reputation. If you tell them you want everybody to be happier, they might just go do that, and that creates a reputation. So it's all just a functionality. We put a lot of pressure on HR as if they made it all up, but it's really however the organization works.
Yes. Yes. Huh. That's awesome. Because you can develop the right reputation if you want to.
You certainly can. You certainly can, with the right leaders, with the right guidance, with the right expectations. That's all it takes.
Yeah. Good stuff. So we're about with our time here. If you had to tell the people listening one thing about HR they might want to consider. I mean, this last one was a great one, but
I only have so many, Damon.
Okay. Well, if you're out, we can move to the next one. But if you've got one more thing that you would like to tell them, what would it be?
I would say, don't be scared. I'm telling leaders out there to go talk to your people. I'm telling people and everyone to go talk to your HR people, because I think if you just ask them where they're coming from and tried to understand where things are, you might break down a few barriers where right now you're seeing a lot of frustration.
Yes. Love it. Go out and talk to the people.
Talk to the people.
Ask the hard questions. It's always good.
That's right.
Stinks at the moment once in a while, but it's good in the end.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Good in the end. Well, Shannon, we've got a very important question here, because before we got on, we were talking about your sons enjoy baseball.
That is true.
So you just need to imagine yourself for this question to really come to you.
Okay.
So you're at a Rockies game. You and your whole family, you're having a great time, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the dugout, and the manager, head coach, it's the bottom of the ninth. There's 2 outs. Then there's a person on second base.
Okay.
Tie score. They need to win this game.
Okay.
Coach looked over, said, Shannon, you're going in. Grab your helmet, grab your bat, knock this run in. I got dinner reservations in an hour and I need to be there.
Okay.
What is your walk-up song?
What is my walk-up song? So Pitbull. I don't know about you, but I feel good.
There we go. That is awesome. I knew, being a baseball mom, baseball fan, you would have it.
Always gonna have one ready, right? Yeah.
Yes. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Oh,
well,
thank
Shannon,
you so much.
Thank you. It's been an awesome having you here today, and so much great information shared. For those of you listening, I want you to go back. If you got in late, go back to the beginning, start listening to Shannon from the beginning. And I forgot to ask too, Shannon, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you if they want to contact you, talk to you about HR, just got some questions?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a beautiful place, and you can reach me on email, shannon@CarriereHR.com.
All right. So we will do that, and we will be back again. But first, I wanted to say thank you, Barry, Harry, Chasen, Jamie. We have Sharon. I hope I didn't miss anybody. I didn't. Okay, I'm pretty good. For dropping the comments today. Appreciate that. And like I said, if you got in late, go back to the beginning. Shannon, look, I got like 3 pages of notes from this conversation. Thank you so much. There's lots of good stuff in here, and reach out to Shannon if you haven't talked to her, want to talk to her, want to learn more about how she's helping companies with their HR and enabling using their HR to enable business growth and prepare for a sale. Thanks, everyone. Hang out just for a minute, Shannon. We'll finish up offline. Everybody else, have a great rest of your week. We'll be back again.